He doesn't know who he is. Why should she know?
Okay, thank you. Welcome to Willow Books and Cafe and our Distinguished Authors Series. I've done literally hundreds of these in my book-selling career, and I can tell you that in the many years which I have been doing these, and I think at last count it's around 150, I can't remember a time that I enjoyed more introducing an author than I do today. And it's true. Because, Cal's one of our own. She's if she bombs out, of course, we'll disavow all knowledge. But I would like to make a prediction. I think this is a wonderful book. I've read it myself. I think even though it captures the voice for young adults very well, it's also fun for adults to read. It covers a lot of local territory, which I find very entertaining. I was very happy to see the characters eating at Helen's in Concord, for example, and a nice thing. And I will make this prediction. I think the book will do very well, both now and in the future. I think it will stick around for a while because it's very well written. It's good, and also Cal has the right personality for a touring author, and she's really figured out the whole thing about swag and giving out gifts and prizes, and she's got that down, so I think it'll do very well. So I will just say this one cautionary note to Cal. Don't forget the little people on your way to the top. Cal.
I am the little people. So this feels like the Oscars a little bit, I feel like I should have tripped on my dress so that you would think, have affection and sympathy for me starting right out. Wow, this is so, I have to just snapshot this in my brain right now because this is so wonderful. Thank you all for coming. This is great. My family has bets on when I'm going to start crying. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm going to try to be strong. But yes, I wrote this book, Being Henry David. Briefly, the synopsis is there's a boy who wakes up at Penn Station in New York City. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he's doing there. All he's got is a copy of Thoreau's Walden next to him, so he figures it has to be a clue to who he is, a clue to his identity. So he does end up coming to Concord and Walden Pond and has a lot of adventures there. Some of you have read this. Some of you are in for such a treat, I do say. But one of the things that I thought would be kind of interesting, rather than do like the Oscars thing, thank you, Mom and Dad, thank you to my dog, I thought that I would kind of give you the story behind the story. How did this book get to exist? What went into this? I shall tell you. First of all, Mom and Dad. Obviously, it started with them. Thank you so much for having me and for encouraging me my whole life. I was a kid who was always drawing and writing little stories. They had to literally ration the paper they gave me because I would love to draw. I would get a writing pad, one a week, and there would be a date on the back because otherwise I would just zip right through them because I love to draw and tell stories so much. So lots of encouragement. They always made me feel like a superstar. I mean, pictures on the fridge, the whole bit. So thank you, Mom and Dad. I'm so glad that they're here. The first book I ever wrote was The Poor Macaroni Named Joni. I'm very proud of this book, and that is my maiden name, Carolyn Claypool. And I wrote this book when I was 9 years old, and a teacher in my teacher in fourth grade and my art teacher actually told me I should send it in to a publisher and see if I could get it published. So I did. I sent it in. I was so excited. Follett Publishing in Chicago. I think they even still exist. And I did get my first rejection at age 9. So, yeah. So this is a long time coming. So me and Joni, we've come a long way. I'll show you another. I want macaroni for dinner. Okay, dear. It's a story of a macaroni. Anyway. So, but I did persevere. Writing is in my DNA or something. And so I continued writing. I went off to college. I majored in English and minored in art and continued writing. And when I graduated college, I did a lot of writing for radio. I worked in radio for about 13 years and also did freelance writing on the side for newspapers. And after college, after I graduated, I found myself in the situation where a lot of people have also found themselves in this position where you're kind of starting a new life and you don't know where to go, you don't know what you're doing. I didn't really have a home base. And so I was homeless. I mean, I tell the story, it's more dramatic than it really was. But I was homeless for a very short period of time, and I lived in a tent. It was my choice to live in the tent, so I don't want to make it sound more dramatic. I lived in the tent for 2 weeks because I wasn't ready to move on yet from the job that I had in upstate New York, and it rained every day. At least that's my recollection, rained every single day. But my Uncle Ray, who's here today, lived in Concord, Massachusetts. We'll do that for him in a second. But I was literally starting fresh. I didn't know where to go, what I was going to be doing. I did kind of want to come to Boston because I was born in Boston, a lot of good feeling about Boston. So he invited me to come and live at his house for the summer. And so I did. And it was there that I walked around Walden Pond, and I thought, and I wondered what to do with my life. And I went to the beautiful library in Concord and looked at those weird statues there that play a part in my book, and really started my life, started my identity. My character has no identity when he starts out. He finds his identity in Concord. Okay, so this is like slightly autobiographical, and I didn't even realize it until this was already going to publication, which is so weird. I even mentioned an uncle in this book. He calls a character an uncle, and it didn't even dawn on me until much later. But it was because my identity started in Concord. I started dating my husband. I got a job there and just really was settled in. But my Uncle Ray kind of saved me and was, this is, again, the story behind the story. That played into this book, even subconsciously. So, Uncle Ray, I gotta give you a thank you. Thank you. There he is, the great Uncle Ray. All right, all right. No, you could, yeah.
My contribution that summer was to be in Vermont.
Yeah, he wasn't there, so it was easy for him to have me there. But it's really wonderful. So, and also I started dating my husband Tedford, who has been so supportive. I got can we? Yeah, thank you. He's been. You are the wind beneath my wings, my love. But so anyway, then I had children. Nikki and Corey, put your hands up. I had 2 beautiful daughters, and one night I started telling them this wonderful bedtime story, and I thought, that is a really good story. I need to write that down and write a book about it. And I had been writing for newspapers and magazines and radio for years and years, and I sat down and I tried to write a story. I tried to write fiction, and it was really, really terrible. And I knew enough about writing to know really, really terrible writing when I saw it. So I said, I need help. So I decided I would go to grad school and get a master's in fine arts up in Maine through the University of Southern Maine, the Stone Coast program. And there I learned about fiction, and I am really thrilled that some of my Stone Coast friends are here. Can you put your hands up? The people that I met in grad school. Oh my God. These are the godparents of this book, because all the writing workshops we've been through, and the laughter, the wine, the tears, the how dare you say that about my book, and things like that. But it all made it what it is today. So that was part of the journey too, Stone Coast and these wonderful friends. Some of the elements in this book, if you've read it, you know that there's a lot of music in this book. I'm a person who loves music. My character has amnesia, but he just picks up a guitar and realizes he knows how to play guitar. His muscle memory remembers. It's like people with Alzheimer's who don't know their own name, but they can still sit down and play an entire piano sonata or sing all the lyrics to a song they knew when they were young. And that's kind of what happens to him. So music is important to me. I have sung in a band. I've been in theater. Musical theater. Who's been in musical theater with me over time? Yay! I got a lot of my musical theater friends here. And so I put that in here. And another thing that I really need to mention is that I did do a lot of research in this when I did this book. Part of the research was just walking around Walden Pond, and that was real tough, but which I like to do anyway. But there's a character in my book who's a Thoreau interpreter, and a Thoreau interpreter is a person who dresses up as Thoreau and does takes people on walks and appears. And so the character in my book, the interpreter that I had in my book, was a tattooed librarian/historian. And so I thought that was kind of quirky and different. And so I walked into the Walden store, probably about 2 years ago or so, and I asked the guy behind the counter, can you tell me the name of a Thoreau interpreter that I could interview for my book? And he said, you mean like me? And he had tattoos on his arm, and my character existed, and I was like so surprised because I thought I made him up. And Richard is here too. There's my friend Richard Smith, who has become a good friend and helped me check on some of the facts and made sure that I was on the right track so thank you, Richard. So that's kind of cool too, that I got to be friends with people along this. So meanwhile, I had written a book during grad school called Slow Dancing on the Edge of the Roof, which is a young adult novel. And I was sending it out to agent upon agent upon agent, trying, and people were very nice about it, and they pretty much said, we like it, but we don't quite love it. So I was like, all right. And finally I found an agent. I don't think he was thinking he might come. He's from the Boston area. Reuben Pfeffer was going to try to make it. He didn't make it, unfortunately, but I was so lucky that he lives in Boston that we could get together for lunch and talk books. But so he looked at Slow Dancing on the Edge of the Roof, and he said, what else you got? And I said, well, I'm working on this other book that's kind of cool. And he looked at it, he goes, that's the one that needs to be your debut novel. So that's the cool thing, is I had somebody who believed in that this could be a book that might actually make it. And so did a lot of revisions with his help, and then he started sending it out to publishers and got some rejections there, but then there was one who said, I have a feeling about this book. Wendy McClure at Albert Whitman and Company in Chicago had a feeling about the book. She brought it home that weekend, read it all the way through, and about a year ago today, I was visiting my dad, and my phone went off, and they said, Cal, are you sitting down? Reuben said, are you sitting down? We have an offer on your book. You're going to have your book published, and it's going to be a quick turnaround. It'll be a year. What do I know? A year seemed like a long time to me, but that's how it got here, and so it's wonderful. So, voila, the book lives. The happy news about it is I just wanted to get a book published, and I wanted people to like it and enjoy it. The things that have been so very exciting is it got a Kirkus starred review, which I had to really learn to find out what that meant. But it's a good thing, I found out. It's a really good thing, because librarians and teachers look at Kirkus, and they wanted to have it for their libraries, and they wanted to have it for their classrooms, and Barnes & Noble, the big bad Barnes & Noble, and small, wonderful independent bookstores like Willow got word of it. And so the official release date of this book was March 1st. Before March 1st, the first printing was already sold out. So it is in a second printing already. And the other thing that I just want to say is about Willow Books. Support your small independent bookstore. Thank you all for being here. As a writer, it's a very solitary job as a writer. I get peculiar if I spend too much time by myself, and so I said, I need to get out of the house and get a job. And so I live very close to here, and so I thought, what would be better for a writer than a bookstore? And thankfully for me, they did hire me and made me a little less peculiar, I hope, by giving me something to do so I could talk to people and get outside of my house. But also, I wanted to thank everybody here for your patience with me. I'm sure I've been very annoying over the past year. It's like, I have an ISBN number, I have a cover, look at my author photo, and they've been very patient with me and very lovely, so thank you all. So, let's see, so that's that presentation, and I just want to tell you a couple things. I've got some giveaways and stuff. I have some bags that I made up. This is called swag. I learned so much. Stuff we all get, except you're not all going to get this. This is the prize, the giveaway. Bookworm. The reason that is, it's kind of become my mascot for the book, because my tattooed librarian, historian, and Thoreau interpreter has this tattoo on his arm that I made up, and so I actually got a tattoo artist to make this for me. So we have temporary tattoos for everyone. These don't need water. These are really extra cool. You don't need water. You can just stick them on, and they stay on. They hold on. My mom wants those. So, and so we have some giveaways, and I think, all right, that didn't happen. But I think we have you given out little Cards. Okay, so we'll do a drawing for the giveaway. And these are some of the items. I went over to the Walden store and I got some items there. And also there's some swag, which is these. Everybody who's bought my book gets a bracelet, the tattoos, and book. We have bookmarks too. That everybody gets those. And we're gonna have a drawing for these gifty things. And then we're gonna have like a little champagne toast. We got to get that sparkling stuff up here, and the godmothers of my book said that they would help pour some of that so we can all have like a little toast together of this sparkling cider champagne. So that's really all the presentation. Oh, I was going to read from my book. Okay. I almost forgot to do that. Once there was a macaroni named Joni. She had many friends in the box with... Oh, sorry, that's the wrong book. It really is. My mother typed this for me out of... All right, but wrong book. I think this is the one I meant to read. That book really wants to be published. Someday, maybe. All right, so this is actually the reading from my book. This is still in New York when Hank has made some friends with these two runaway homeless kids who kind of take him under their wing and are kind to him, and he confides in them that he really doesn't know who he is. They take him into this alley where they've made a little, makeshift shelter out of old construction drywall and things like that. And so this is his first night. He has just woken up hours earlier without knowing who he is. He's really frightened. And so this is his first night in New York City. Staring up at the moon, I try to feel sleepy, but now that I'm alone, my mind is racing and I'm wide awake, with my heart hammering against my ribs. There are skittering sounds on the other side of the dumpster, probably rats. The wind shifts, and even though the dumpster is mostly full of construction trash, I get a strong whiff of rotting food and random nastiness. I pull a huge plank of particle board out of a pile next to the dumpster, lean it against the back wall of the alley, and huddle underneath like it can keep me safe. I try to stop my hands from shaking. To calm my twitchy brain, I take a little internal inventory, try to piece together what I know about myself so far. Okay, so I'm a teenage guy, probably somewhere between 16 and 18 years old, hair black, eyes gray, not bad looking either. There was only that quick glance in the men's room mirror, but I know that much. I like burgers and soda, and I might be a smoker, although that cigarette left a weird taste in my mouth that kind of makes me want to gag. I have a bump and a cut above my forehead that stings if I touch it. I get real fidgety around the cops. And there's a black beast inside me that doesn't want me to know stuff. It guards my memory, clawing at my insides and going for my throat if I get too close. So why did the beast wake up when Jack said, "Maybe you killed somebody"? Is that what it won't let me remember? The black thing in me surges again and I feel a pounding headache coming on. "Stop," I whisper, "go away." But it crouches there, waiting to creep closer so it can attack, now while I'm alone and vulnerable. There's a light shining down from the side of the building, bright enough to read by. So I open my book, Walden, by Henry David Thoreau, and that's what I do. This Thoreau guy wrote it in the mid-1800s, so the writing is a little weird for me at first. I have to read some paragraphs over a few times to figure out what he's trying to say. But then I start to get into it. Walden, as it turns out, is named after some pond in the woods in a town called Concord, Massachusetts. Henry David Thoreau was in his late 20s when he went there to get away from the world and live alone in a little cabin for a couple years. He listened to the birds, walked around the pond, and just thought about stuff. Living off the grid, whatever grid there was in 1845. Instead of the stink of the alley and the echo of sirens and honking taxicabs, while I'm reading the book, it's actually like there's fresh air rustling leaves in a tree over my head. I hear the water and birds singing. Somehow, I know this place in Henry's book. I can remember being outside like that in the woods near a lake. It's familiar in a way I feel to my bones. It's the closest feeling so far to home. All right, so we'll do like a Q&A, and then we'll get the signing going, and then we'll have the champagne toast and the giveaway and all that stuff. So, okay, any questions from the audience? Yes, yeah. Well, when I was 12, I just did it. I just was always writing. I wasn't in any special program. Like there are a lot of programs, like through Acton, I think there are programs for writing and anything to encourage a kid. Keep a journal, encourage her to keep a journal. That was something that was really, really important for me. And just keep on doing it. And it's just such a wonderful thing especially for young kids. Life is confusing. And if you can write stuff down, it kind of helps make sense of life a little better when you write them down. And so, yeah, just tell her to keep on doing it, keep a journal. And yeah, it's a wonderful thing to be passionate about. Yeah, I did kind of say that along the way, that it took a lot of going to grad school and having wonderful instructors like Elizabeth, and the workshopping process, and just sending it out and not giving up, and sending it out to agent after agent, rejection after rejection. Some were encouraging, some not so much, and then just keep going. And then finally got the agent, and then the agent starts to send out. There's more rejection. I mean, there's a whole lot of rejection involved in this. You got to be either crazy or somewhat thick-skinned, which I really am not. So I don't even know what I'm doing here, but I did it somehow. I was just like obsessed. I guess I'm just obsessed with it. I just love writing. It's what I do. It's who I am. So yeah. So it was a long journey. I wrote this. I like to tell the story about the first draft I wrote about this. Was during NaNoWriMo, if you've ever heard about that, National Novel Writing Month. Every November, you write an entire novel, a first draft of a novel, 50,000 words. You turn off your inner editor. You just get it out. You just write. And it's actually a really wonderful way to get your whole book out. It's like a lump of clay. It's certainly not, it hasn't really taken a good form yet, but it's a start. You've got something now to edit and something now to work on. So I did that about 3 years ago, and then spent the rest of the 3 years since then till now polishing it and turning it into something that actually was accepted. So, yes.
I don't know if you already said this, but how long have you been writing?
I've been writing since I could hold that fat red pencil in like kindergarten. I was just always one of those kids who just loved it. I wasn't like a Stephanie Meyer who wrote the Twilight series, who just one day said, I'm going to write a book. I mean, nothing against Stephanie Meyer. Her books were very successful. But no, I've just been always a writer. When I went to college, I wanted to major in English so I could be a writer. I never wanted to be anything else. I'm one of those people who just always knew that I couldn't do anything else. It's what I was supposed to do. Oh, wow. Yes, Glenn? Oh,
This should be a diss.
oh, stop. Yeah, there are people here Glenn was in a band with me, and yeah, that's why there's so much music in the book. And at the end, I do a shout out to all the people who have made music with me in the past. So, yeah. But thank you. But I was never going to be a professional singer, but I sure enjoyed it. It was fun to play. Another question? Yes, Keith? Well, there are a couple of details I had. Now I realize I had the subconscious thing about living in Concord at my uncle's house. But the other thing that I was keeping a journal, trying to come up with an idea for my next novel, because the other one wasn't really doing so well. And so I looked in the paper one morning, and there was a picture of that boy from Wayland, William Senn, if anybody remembers him. He was driving drunk, and he hit a trooper on the side of the road, a female trooper, and she was paralyzed in a vegetative state, and she died recently. He's been back in the news. But the picture of this kid in the paper, he was just devastated. You could see that he was just a good kid, basically, trying to live his regular life, and he just messed up. And the trauma of that, I was wondering, how does a kid get through a trauma and move on with his life after that? And that was another thing, that it's not the same trauma, but my character goes through a trauma. And does that answer your question? Sort of? Yeah, so that was one of the things that helped kind of it helped the story along, is things that happen like that. And some stuff just comes out of the blue. You don't even know where. It's like, how did I come up with that? And it's like all kinds of subconscious stuff going on, I know. But it was a really interesting journey. So, yes?
Did it take a long time?
It took a long time. It's hard work. I've been writing pretty much my whole life, and that's a long time. But this particular book, hey, I beg your pardon.
30 years.
Jeez, 30-ish years at least. But But yeah, it took me at least 3 years to write this one, and about the same amount of time to write the first one that never got published. But Joni Macaroni, I'm really pushing for Joni. I think that one took me like a classroom day. Yes. Yeah, well, the very first copy, the very first version that I wrote was during NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month. It's an online challenge, and that's 50,000 words. So that was how long the first one was, because you just want to get it done. But then, of course, it got longer as I started adding things to it. But there's a lot of stuff that was in this book that is not in this book and will never see the light of day. There are so many drafts that something like this goes through, and wonderful writing friends who say, that's not working for me. That's boring. Amy, why should I care about this? This is really boring. It's like, Amy, no! And then I went back and, yeah, okay, it's boring. I'll change it. And it made it better. It made it stronger. Oh, any more questions? Yes?
What's in the works?
All right, yes. Well, during NaNoWriMo this past November, I wrote another first draft of my next novel. And the working title is Life Shards. And this one is also a teen novel, and it but this one has a little more magical realism to it. Through the course of the book, this girl has a mirror that gets broken, and there's 5 different shards, and through each of these shards, this feels like communion, doesn't it? But through each of these shards, she's able to see who she would be if she was raised by different people under different circumstances. Kind of a nature versus nurture thing. Like, haven't we all wondered? I think most good stories start with a what if. Tedford and I have talked about this a lot, a what if. And so I was here at work one day, and I was finished with this book, and I was going to have to wait a long time for it to come out, and so my agent said, start working on something else. So I said, what though, what? And I was really literally walking around looking at other books, and I said, what if? What if you could find out what you would be like if you were raised by different people in a different house, and they were encouraging different things in your personality? What would that be like? And then that's how that idea came to be. So that's what I'm working on. Yeah. Yes, I use both. I mostly compose on the computer, but sometimes it just, if I'm stuck, if I'm not being able to get out what I want to get out, I'll just bring a pad of paper to like a coffee shop and jot stuff down. Or sometimes on my break here at work, I just need to just do it handwritten. And sometimes that just brings a little something different to it for some reason. Just puts your brain in a different place. And that helps sometimes to get through. And so I like to do that sometimes, just write stuff down. But I normally compose right on the computer. Thank you, Maureen, for asking. Yes, Uncle Ray?
While you're working on the second novel, why don't you put a CD together with some illustrations from this book?
Illustrations? What, you want me to do
So
some
many of
illustrations? I'm so good.
For this
Oh, you mean a professional for this? Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, so many images in there with the music. I mean, goodness.
Oh, and somebody could write a song, and I could sing, maybe Glenn will write a song, and we'll have a theme song that will go with
Or
the
some of the
book.
songs you mentioned.
Or the songs that I mentioned,
You can play
Blackbird.
the guitar.
I cannot really play the guitar.
A group I know.
Or a
sings
group that we know
Blackbird.
sings Blackbird, an a cappella group that I might just happen to sing with that might just happen to be called Custom Blend. But, yeah. Anything else? Anybody else have a question? Yeah. Yeah, who would I cast? Oh, of course I've thought of that. Doesn't every writer think, well, let's see, if this was a movie, that would be so cool. Well, the funny thing is that there is a copy of my book in Los Angeles right now. But it's a friend of Nikki's who it was Carmen Electra's assistant, actually. He went to Concord Carla High School, and now he's Carmen Electra. Oh, and his mom is here, Ellen. Yes, that's Alex. Alex read the book, and he loved it, and he said, well, I know some people who know some people, so let me see if I can pass it along. And so he did. He did. He took it. How do I do the dialogue? That's a good question. I don't know. I just picture how people would say things to each other, how they would talk to each other. And I've heard a lot of, having, as you have had lots of kids at your house, in and out, and, you just kind of pick up the lingo a little bit, and you get a feel for what's what sounds right and what sounds natural, and it's just fun. I know that there are some writers who read all their dialogue out loud in a room, and I don't do that because I just feel really ridiculous. But I think I think it's probably a good idea. Yes.
How do you organize your day?
Laura Moore is my organizer lady. I hired her to help me get my life org. How do I organize my day? She's asking me. She's checking on me. Well, part of it is the reason that I hired you, Laura, is because I'm incredibly disorganized, and the fact that I was even able to write a book, let alone 2 books, is just because I am obsessed with writing. And I would write, at a coffee shop. I would write while I was watching, America's Top Model or something like that. I would just, or with people running around, or sometimes I needed silence. I just have to write. But it does help to have my lists that you help me make, and I'm really good on iCal now. I've gotten very good about organizing my day. So.
Cal should be.
Yeah, I thought, well, you should have an I Tedford, and you should have an I David, and I have an I Cal. but yeah, so it's a struggle for me to be organized. It really is, but I'm doing better. What, you mean my writing voice or my speaking?
Your writing voice, well, both. That's just,
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I've read a lot of young adult fiction. I really like to read. I think there's a lot of really well-written, good young adult fiction out there.
convincing and original.
Convincing and original. Thank you, Uncle Ray.
Put together random things.
Yeah.
Random
Is
things
somebody?
that fit.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, we're gonna have a toast. Does somebody want to make the toast, or shall I make my own toast? Oh.
Now, as unaccustomed as I am to standing in front of people, let us please raise your glasses to a lifetime achievement for my wife, Cal. This has been one of the most exciting times of our lives, and what I'm hoping for is that people love it, and that this is the first of many.
Thank you so much. Wow, I didn't cry. I'm so amazed.
It'll come.
I'll go home. It'll be.
It's scary that I actually know Jody Macaroon. My last name. But no, it's official. Thanks, Whitney. Just at this party.
Would you like a swag ticket?
Of course.
Did you see that Jim?
Jim Boston.
Yes. I'm really excited. Are you going to stop by our house?
I am not, because I have way too many papers to grade, so
All
I
right.
get them out of the way so I can write.
Sounds good.
Once you came to Concord,
Good for you. Here we go. I was you. You would be me.
Always here in spirit, so
Would you like a ticket?
Oh, you want me to write this to you?
please. I can't wait to read it. Thank you. My sister already got it through Amazon, and she said, I know. Well, she's not from here.
Is that right? This is for Sarah Weber. Weber with 2 B's. Ticket to win some swag. I'm sorry?
I think so.
We get a ticket.
Hi, Cal. I work with Tedford.
Oh, you do?
My name's Heather. It's nice to meet you. I'll leave your flowers with him this evening.
Are you going to do something by our house?
I probably can, but I want you to still have them for that.
Yeah, I'll go over your house.
Yeah, excellent.
So excited.
Thank you.